Good morning, I'm here with Bruno and Montanari, partner at SEROBA. Today we're discussing attractiveness and developments of the European healthcare sector. Good morning, Bruno.
Good morning.
Can you introduce yourself and your firm?
Sure. So I'm a partner, as you said. SEROBA is an early stage venture capital fund based in Dublin, Ireland. We are covering largely Europe, and we have always an eye on North America as well, where we have usually historically done a couple of investments in some of our previous funds. The team is comprised of 9 people, 5 investment professionals, some in Dublin, Paris, and now Milan. And we invest both in biotech and medtech, what we say in our jargon, Series A type of investor.
Perfect. And can you just provide a quick overview of the sector, any recent trends you're seeing, that kind of thing?
Sure. So as far as Europe is concerned, which will be the focus of my answer, the biotech and medtech sector, in terms of the quality of science, is always better every day. It's really thriving. The quality of the work being done in academic labs is really there. And what's interesting as well to notice in the last years is a better communication between the different players that are needed to be able to value this innovation, create interesting companies which will be led by experienced people and backed by experienced investors to make everything possible to turn that into a success. And first and foremost, a success for the patients. It's a long journey in the medical sector before you can bring a solution to the patient, a drug or a device, and as well a financial success. So clearly Europe has been doing a lot of work on various fronts, and you've got very interesting companies now that are visible worldwide that are coming from Europe. Interestingly as well, and this might be less known, but many US companies actually access some assets, patents, technology from Europe, and combined with the firepower of the US in terms of entrepreneur and finance, they made something really, really interesting out of this.
So how does Europe differ from other regions worldwide?
So the quality of the science, once again, is very good, okay? As good as you can find in the US, clearly. I think as well that, interestingly, the cost to develop science is way less compared to the US. So you can build some R&D teams at 2 to 3 times less of the cost compared to the US. So somehow people would say it's more efficient, okay? At some point, because we have to think globally, the US and the attractivity of the US for the reasons I mentioned before will need to be tapped into. Okay, but there's a time for everything. But clearly, if you want to establish a company based on strong science and more experienced entrepreneur, you find the right ingredients, and we have the recipe to make it happen again and again in Europe.
So obviously healthcare is a very attractive investment at this point in time. What does the industry need to do to make sure that this remains the same and moving forward?
We still have to work on a few fronts, and it's largely shared between European countries. We need to ensure there is less red tape at every possible level to facilitate company creation. But as well, when you think about the end game, which is possibly a refinancing through the capital market, you need to make it easier, not only for a company to go and do its IPO, but as well to make sure that you can broaden the world of investors and specialist investors, okay, that can support those companies just before or during the IPO and in the aftermarket as well. So less red tape is really important. And then you need to do still some work, some job in broadening the type of investors that will be interested in investing in healthcare, okay? And this is a big difference between Europe and the US. In US, you have many endowment funds, pension funds that actually invest into biotech and medtech, and we are still missing this. There are not the right incentives, and despite years and years of lobbying and trying to educate different parties, different players, in doing so, there's still some way to go. And this is what's missing. It's a very strong financial market, pan-European, if possible, that can be comparable to the Nasdaq for those IPOs and follow-on financing. And this will drive even more innovation and even more success.
Obviously, I think the general feeling at this IPM is that it's one of positivity and a bit of optimism, but obviously there's still a bit of a financing drought. How's that affecting the healthcare?
It does affect it. It does affect it. I would say, we've seen those crises before. One classically would call this survival of the fittest. Now, what does it mean to be the fittest? It's not necessarily because you've got bad technology, bad programs that eventually you don't get refinanced and you have to close the shop. Sometimes the C-suite needs really to be plugged into the investment community, have built a relationship of trust where they could see they could deliver. And this is sometimes what is missing. And then, unfortunately, if there are too few investors to keep investing into those good companies and you cannot find any other option, the reality is that either you find a way to consolidate, merge with another player, combine forces and make it happen, either, and we have started to see that in the last 12, 18 months, you will see some angels falling, which is unfortunate, but it's part somehow of those cycles. The financial crisis we're living in will not last forever. And at some point in time, money will flow back and success again will happen and success will drive success. This is what it is.
And just finally, what's your outlook for the next 5 to 10 years?
I think that in my business, venture capital, especially early stage venture capital in life sciences, you need to be an optimistic, but cautiously optimistic, okay? So as I mentioned before, I have no issue in terms of the quality of the science. There are very good people to drive this, bring that out of academia or through spin-off from pharma companies and bring that to the next level, and hopefully the end game being bring it to the patients. Address unmet medical need, do something good, okay? And more companies are being created, okay, every week, every month. And in the years to come, you will find the next big companies out of those new breeds. And this is what's exciting. So it's just a matter of alignment of vision, making sure that every player is there and plays its own role. And if we combine forces with like-minded people, it will at the end play well.
Perfect, that's all. Thanks a lot, Bruno.
Welcome.